Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Clear Vision with EGlaze. I'm your host, EGlaze. And today we have a trailblazer in the world of mental health, performance psychology, and athlete well being. Dr. Kensa Gunter
Hello,
is a
hello.
clinical and sports psychologist based right here in the ATL, and
hmm
her work has shaped some of the highest levels of professional athletes and professional sports. I didn't know all this, but during research, she serves as the inaugural director of NBA and WNBA Mind Health, the leads comprehensive mental health, wellness, and performance program designed to support athletes, coaches, staff, and team organizations across all levels. I cover the team that she does a lot for, and both of them are very high on Dr. Gunter. So she also maintains a private practice, sits at multiple organizational boards, and currently serves as the president of Division 47 of the American Psychological Association, the Society for Sports Exercises and Performance Psychology. Her work bridges science, humanity, and elite performance, and her voice has become one of the most trusted in the mental health conversation within sports and beyond. Everybody, please welcome my friend, Dr. Gunter, to Clear Vision. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well, and thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It is a pleasure to be here, always a pleasure to see you. And so I just
Yes.
am grateful for the opportunity to speak with you this evening.
Well, usually I wait to the end to ask this question, but because of what you do, what gave you a clear vision to do this, what you're doing now?
That's such a great question. So, I don't know if I would say that the vision was clear when it started, but I think it has cleared as the years have gone by.
Okay.
So initially I wanted to be a physical therapist. So I was an athlete growing up,
Okay.
youth sports. I was a swimmer, I played basketball. And during my sophomore year of high school, I injured my ankle. And so it resulted in me sitting out for a few games, and I worked with a physical therapist. Physical therapist was great. But that ignited the thought around who supports athletes when they're not able to play, when they're
Mm.
not able to be on the court, when they're not able to contribute, who offers support, care, guidance to them and to help get them back to the playing field, right? And so initially I went to UGA to be a physical therapist. I took organic chemistry and said, well, what else can I major in? Because I'm
Mm.
not going to keep going down this route. And psychology actually emerged as the other area of interest that I had. I'd taken a lot of courses in psychology, and I just really was fascinated by this idea of understanding human behavior and what makes people work. And so pursued my degree in psychology, went on to get my doctorate in psychology. Initially in the field of psychology, I wanted to do forensic work, but switched to sport when I moved into my doctoral studies. And from that point, I think it's just been go, right? And thinking about athletes and not only who supports them when they're not able to be on the court, which is kind of where my interest started, but who supports them, period.
Yeah.
Because they're elite and they're exceptional and they do these wonderful things, but they are also very human. And
Yes.
like all of us, they need support and help and services. And so I think that clear vision came in my doctoral program and just in the work that I've been able to do since.
It was funny. A lot of times we will say, especially us football players, football was 90% mental and 10%
Mm-hmm.
physical.
Mm-hmm.
And in what you've seen, how much have you seen that athletes prosper when they can get their famous words, good that tool between their two shoulders in order and on the right path?
You got it. You gonna give me a lead in?
Yeah. So we're back. I cut this out. Don't worry about it. So when you're
Okay.
athletes are more about 90-10. One thing we've always talked about football is the mental between the
Mm-hmm.
viewing of videos, finding out which holes to protect and which tackle and how to line up and all that. How much
Mm-hmm.
mental work means for athletes. In your time, how have you been able to help athletes actually become better performers with
Mm-hmm.
their mental aspect and getting them through those humps?
Here's the thing, right? Our mind and our body is connected. So when we think about performance or we think about sport performance, you're right. Historically, we focused on the physical aspects of the game, or we focused on the tactical aspects, right? Like, what are the X's and O's? What are the plays? What are the things that I need to do to understand offense, defense, or kind of how I need to execute in my particular sport? But we need our minds, right, help to guide all of that. So our capacity to focus, our capacity to shift our attention when needed, our capacity to manage the intense moments, our capacity to believe in our abilities and to go out and execute when we need to. So when you think about it, truly, it's not a question of, do I have mental skills or not? It's, what am I doing to develop them? Right. For any of us in the sport that we've played, we've learned skills to help us be excellent and to execute in our sport. We've learned to think about our sport related IQ. We've learned how to move physically in a way that allows us to be excellent on the court, on the field, in the pool. It's the same thing. What are you doing to develop your mental skills? What are you doing to develop that cognitive ability to pick out what's necessary for you to execute, to pay attention, to minimize the distractions, to focus, to breathe, to maintain a sense of calm in the midst of chaos, such that you can perform and execute when it matters the most, right? So it really becomes a matter of, again, not do you have mental strength, do you have mental skills or not, but what are you doing to develop them? Because those skills, like any other skills, can be developed. And so that's really what we work on in the realm of mental performance, is developing mental skills, self-regulation skills, self-awareness skills, and just those cognitive skills that allow you to perform, that allow your mind and your body to be in sync so that you can perform when you need to.
You work, and I've had this question a lot. Is there a difference? Yes, we're talking about the athlete now, but just the normal person who deal with day-to-day jobs. You mentioned a little bit performance. It's just not just athletes, it's just people in general. Is there a big difference in the way that, you know, some things are handled when you're dealing with an athlete compared to somebody who does a 9 to 5 every day, or does a entrepreneur per se, or somebody else who out there trying to do the best they can and get through mental blocks through, you know, different ways?
You know, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I think sometimes when we think about the worlds of mental performance or mental skills training, it is something that is thought to be reserved for those at the elite athlete space. But to the point and the question that you've asked, the truth is these skills can be used anywhere. These skills can be used by anyone, right? Any of us can set goals and write down our goals and work towards achieving them. Any of us can work on developing our self-awareness skills so that we're able to recognize when we need something, or when we're good, or when we're not, or what it is that we might actually need to feel better. We all can develop self-regulation skills and practice meditation or mindfulness, or do breathing exercises to help us regulate the feelings of angst or overwhelm or frustration that we might experience, right? We can all benefit from those skills. So truthfully, the skills that we use and that we teach really are transferable, whether we're talking about a student who's preparing for an exam, whether we're talking about an athlete who's on the court, whether we're talking about somebody in a corporate space who's trying to meet a deadline, whether we're talking about a surgeon who's preparing for a major procedure that they have to do, right? We can use these skills in a lot of different performance domains, because performance happens in a lot of spaces. So we think about sport, but we can use these skills in performing arts, military, tactical populations, corporate spaces, education spaces. Kids can learn some of these emotional and social skills that we're talking about. These skills really are applicable to anyone, and anyone looking to develop an edge as it relates to their performance and their capacity for executing when they need to, they can benefit from these skills.
You know, one thing that is funny, we're looking at the NBA now and we're talking about the end of eras. And you talked about it when you was a sophomore in high school. You had an injury that pretty much, I ain't gonna say ended your career in athletics, but you had to think about something else. How do you help athletes get to the next field? Athletics, a lot of us, when athletes, especially professional athletes, they're in their 30s, 20s when they're finished. Do you help them get to that next level to use these skills and transfer them into the next realm of life that they're heading into? Because a lot of times you hear about the athletes having issues post field work, being on the field.
That's a real experience, right? The idea of transition and the idea of athletic retirement. And as you mentioned, like, if we are fortunate, we all may be in a career long enough to reach the point of retirement, but that usually happens much later in life, right? And so you are correct. You think about athletes who may be retiring at the age of in their 20s, in their 30s, right? In their 40s, and what that feels like. And so the first thing that I would say about that is transition is a process. there is a moment at which somebody declares that they are retired and they're no longer going to compete in their sport. But what happens next is a process. And for many, that process can include feelings of grief and loss, right? The loss of being in the locker room, the loss of being around teammates, the loss of the routine and the structure that came with participating in their sport, the loss of the relationships, or kind of regularly being in contact with people that they may have been in contact with for years, like the loss of the pace of what happens, the loss of the support that comes along with being in a sports space. Like there's a lot of loss that comes along with that. So there can be feelings of sadness, of just challenge at the loss of what has become such a normal part of their lives now no longer being a part, right? But there can also be some feelings of relief, right? There can be relief about always some level of nervousness around what's next, right? And questions about, is whatever's next going to fulfill me in the way that I was fulfilled with my sport? Or what even can I do next? Because although athletes learn a lot of skills by participating in their sport, leadership skills, skills in working with others, skills in terms of managing multiple demands, skills in terms of navigating very difficult and intense schedules, they don't always think about how transferable those skills are to other elements of life, right? And so sometimes it's educating them about how the skills that they've developed do transfer into other spaces and helping them to realize that they may be more equipped than they think they are, even though their workspace has been the court or the field, right? They still have a lot of skills. And so the transition is a process that includes allowing them to grieve, that includes allowing them to explore new things, new identities, allowing them to recalibrate and to think about what life looks like now. And it also includes education about what skills you have, what's out there, what may be available to you. And then last but not least, it certainly can include support and direct care if needed, right? So talking to a professional, working with a counselor, participating in therapy as you're navigating what is for many a major transition can be really helpful. I think about DeMar DeRozan has a YouTube series called Dinners with DeMar, where he is interviewing other athletes. It's like a one-on-one interview with him and other athletes and other sports personnel in this series. And in the conversation between him and Dwayne Wade talks about going to therapy as a part of his transition process and talks about how helpful it was for him. So everybody's transition looks different.
Right.
But certainly offering support when people transition is something that we think about, and actually there's an opportunity for us to do more in that space, because I think, we recognize that it's a major element of an athlete's career, but we certainly can do more to offer direct support to those who are navigating that part of their journey.
It's funny because I have a very good friend who just recently retired from the NBA, and he said he went from everywhere he went, people would do it for him. If he wanted to go to a club, they would call ahead, hey, my guy's coming. I'm going to a game. Tickets were set left for him. And when he retired, it was, I got to do all this myself. So the limelight per se disappears. And, I've been doing this for, in sports around for 11 years. I hear a lot, and I get concerned by athletes because not only is it the play every day and the teammates, it's the limelight, it's the crowd, it's the putting a jersey on with your name on the back of it. It's a lot that they have to, people don't realize that. They think it's, well, why did he go into this depression? Because if you ever been on a high where you can hit a shot and 10, 12,000 people go crazy, or it's hard to.
It's a different experience. It is a different experience. It really is. And it's not to say that people get caught up or wrapped up in that experience exclusively, but it is one thing to go from having that to not having that, right? And you can hear that at all levels, right? Even if I think about the high school star athlete who's everywhere, everybody in town recognizes them and knows them, right? And gives them perks and benefits and privileges. And then they go away and they come back and maybe they're not playing their sport anymore. And it's like people forget, they don't treat them the same, right? In their court, a person feels like the same person, but they're not treated the same. And so the shift in being in that world and in that culture and not can be very different. And just one more point on the transition piece. The reason for your transition also matters, right? So if you transition because you've chosen that it's my time, I'm done, I am saying I want to retire, that's a different experience than the person who has to transition out of participating in sport because they had a career-ending injury, or the person who was cut from a team and wasn't picked up by another team, right? Or like that creates a very different experience. Like, what was the cause of you choosing to transition at this time matters a great deal. And that too is different for different athletes, but certainly we think about all those elements when we think about transition and how to support people in that aspect of their experience.
Thank you for saying that, because I guess when you hear people talk, they always say, well, how is this person able to do it better than this person who left the game? But that matters. If I got cut or if I had to leave because my knees were blown out, I didn't want to leave yet. I thought I still had a little bit left. Or if I got cut from a team and nobody picked me up, that's not my choosing no more. But the ones that are able to do if you look at the guys, I look at the ones who, for instance, Reggie Miller, he's enjoying that. Charles Barkley, they're all enjoying the next level. But there are people who, unfortunately, I ran into that struggled mightily because they thought they had a few more years left, or they didn't get that retirement that they wanted. That is very important.
It feels like unfinished business, right? Like it just lasting. Like it feels like unfinished business, and they didn't have control over when the business was finished, right? And so there can be you have to resolve that, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like working with a therapist can help you in some ways resolve or try to resolve some of those feelings and move into your next, right? Because I think that's the other thing too, is we think about retirement, it's like, oh, well, this is ending. It was like, this chapter is ending. You're retiring from and transitioning out of competitive sport. You're not retiring from or transitioning out of the rest of your life, right? And so it's like you have to try to put that in perspective, but that can be a different process for folks. And then to the other point you said, like some people's transition seems easier than others, but that, you just boil that down to we're all different. So we all are going to respond and react to different situations differently for anything, athletes and non-athletes alike. And so the idea is not to compare experiences, but try to support and help people through the experience that they may be having.
Yeah, I was just about to say, that's just not an athlete world. That's everybody's world. Everybody goes through wanting to leave. They want the way they want to leave or do what they want to do. So it's just not we talking athletics, but you see that in everyday life. I didn't get a chance to do it the way I wanted to. I didn't do it. That's wow. That's a very important point. I think a lot of people don't realize sometimes. And like I said, I've been blessed to talk to a lot of them. And the main thing I hear is, I feel like I had something left for her. But the ones that are happy are the ones that be like, man, I ain't got another play in me. I don't want to touch a weight. I don't want to run no more. I'm good. Let me ask you this. I've known you, and I remember when you started talking about you were working with the Hawks and you're working with the Atlanta Dream, and now you're the director of WNBA and NBA, the inaugural, let me get this right, NBA and WNBA Mind Health. What does that role look like day to day? What is that role specifically?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting role, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be in it, right? So the Mind Health program, as you mentioned in the outset, is the league's mental health, wellness, and performance program. And so the program itself launched in 2018. And I've been in this role since 2020. And so I share that information because I think one of the really important points to note about the program is there had been conversations about what do we need to do in the area of mental health and wellness within the league. Like those conversations had been happening since 2015. But if any of your listeners or viewers recall, in 2018, DeMar DeRozan posted a tweet in February that said, this depression gets the best of me. And then later that year, Kevin Love released his first Players Tribune article entitled "Everyone's Going Through Something," right? That was 18. And so that was 2018. And so those two instances kind of resulted in those two individuals being a part of the first public service announcement that the league created around mental health. And so why am I sharing all this? Because the Mind Health program really was initiated and launched in response to players calling more attention to mental health. It was the player voices, and it was the players sharing their stories, and it was the players becoming more vocal about some of their experiences and some of the challenges that they were navigating that resulted in the league launching the program, launching the initiative in 2018. And then in 2020, like I said, when I joined as the director, what I would say we've done since then is try to help the program evolve from just an initiative to a full program. So to your question about what does it look like? So it looks like a couple of different things. It looks like, one, kind of working at the league level. It looks like advocating for this space, advocating for there to be mental health and performance professionals in our team markets so that there are professionals available to work with our teams, our players, our coaches, our staff in the markets when they need them, right? And so there's a big element of advocacy for not only the field, but for the professionals to actually be a part of our team systems, which they are. So at this point, all teams are required to have a licensed mental health provider and a psychiatrist available to work with their teams. In addition to advocacy, it looks like policy creation, right? We try to create guidance and provide guidance to teams on how you can integrate professionals into your organization and your team's activities, what it can look like in season, post-season, off-season, pre-season. We really try to be very detailed in some of the structure that we provide about how you can do this and how you can make this work. We also, in addition to kind of that advocacy, policy creation, we create content. So we're trying to educate folks about mental health and mental performance and well-being and how they all work together. So there's a big educational and literacy component to what we try to do. And of course, we provide care, right? We have licensed providers available because if someone needs services, we want to either be able to provide the service or to help facilitate a referral so that they can get connected with a professional who can provide them the service that they need. And so it's the guidance, right? And the advocacy, it's education, it's clinical support. And then the last big thing that I would say we're really trying to do is promote culture change, like change the way that people think about mental health. So to move beyond just destigmatizing mental health, which is equated to removing the negative association, we're trying to move into normalizing mental health, right? So having folks think about mental health in the same way that they think about their physical health. We don't just think about physical health when we don't feel well. We think about what are we doing to promote our physical health on a regular basis? How much sleep am I getting? Am I drinking water? Am I exercising? Am I connecting and socializing with people who feed me, right? Who make me feel positive? We think about how we are engaging in healthy habits as it relates to our physical well-being and even social well-being on a regular basis. We want people to think about that as it relates to mental health as well. How are you recharging your mind? How are you giving your mind a break? How are you challenging your mind? What are you doing to help make sure that your emotional life, your psychological life, your cognitive life is in a good place so that you can show up and function in the way that you want to? And so that's really through Mind Health that's a range of what we try to do. And I would say, one of my primary roles is to kind of be the point person for our network of professionals, but also I do a lot of the policy creation, I do a lot of the content creation, and I lead the charge on many of the advocacy efforts.
That's awesome. You also answered one of my questions. I was going to ask the requirements for each team to have a person in place that they can reach out to. But how do you get, how are athletes accepted? We both are I still say athletes we are because the body might not move like that though.
I'm athletic-ish.
Yeah. How do you get them over the whole being coached in the 80s and 90s? You don't have to have mental weakness. You don't want to be mental. You got to be strong. If you show that you're not, let's say you're depressed or you're having issues, that's a sign of weakness. Even today, and it took two big time athletes to say, hey, this thing is real, man. I got to get through it. How are athletes in today's time accepting that help? Are they still are they slowly jumping into it? Even though it's been a while since it's been 7 years almost, but are they beginning to associate and accept it, or how are they coming along? I do hear some athletes are taking breaks sometimes when they need to, and they will say, for undisclosed reasons and whatever they do it for, but how are they accepting this? Are they becoming aware of like you said, if I can take care of my body, lift weights, run, eat the right meals, am I doing the right thing for my mental as well?
Yeah. So I definitely think there's been a significant shift. And I know I mentioned DeMar DeRozan and I mentioned Kevin Love, but I would also say in other sports as well. So I think about Simone Biles, right? I think about
Yes.
Michael Phelps. I think about athletes in other sports, Naomi Osaka. Like I think about a number of athletes who have been very public about how they are trying to protect, manage, navigate their mental health, right? So I think I really do think over the last 7-8 years, athletes have led the charge in this conversation that has resulted in the conversation being more widespread and more acceptable within society at large.
Right.
So I certainly think there has been increased utilization across the board. I think we do hear athletes talking about working with a therapist or working with a coach or just sharing what they do from a mental skills like routine that they have for themselves. So I think we certainly have seen an increased willingness to talk about it publicly and an increased receptivity to using the services. At the same time, I recognize there still exists a stigma, right?
Mm-hmm.
For some communities, there is still a stigma. As you said, historically, when we think about mental health, that's not something that was discussed or talked about publicly at all. And more to the point of what you said, when we used to say the words mental health, we would automatically think illness and we would automatically think about weakness. But mental health is not something that's rooted in illness. Mental health, by definition, is a state of well-being. And so I think that also has shifted some of how we think about this, is because my hope is that we have moved away from thinking about mental health as being equivalent to mental illness. It is not. You can have a person who is navigating a mental illness who is still able to function really well in our society, right? In the same way that you can have somebody who has a physical illness, who, if they are engaging in treatment and managing it, can function, right? We don't think about somebody who has a physical illness and then automatically think that they need to be locked away, put away, and they can't function. The same thing is true when we think about mental illness, right? 1 in 5 adults, 1 in 5 kids also in any given year has a diagnosable mental health condition. But just because you have a mental health condition does not mean you can't function, right? There are levels to this, as they say, right? And so there are levels to the way in which mental health and mental illness conditions can impact people, right? And so I think our task is to separate those two, right? Mental health is not the same thing as mental illness. If you got a mental illness, we want to help you treat it and manage it, take care of it. Yeah. If you don't, we still want to help you promote your mental health. And even if you do have mental illness, we also still want to help you in promoting your mental health, right? So that, I think, has been a part of the literacy effort, is to try to help athletes, because that's who we work with, but to help people understand you can work on your mental health independent of whether or not you have mental illness. And your mental health is foundational to your mental performance. Just like health is foundational to your capacity to perform, that's true in the mental realm as well. And so we just treat it as another element of health that you need to be mindful of if you want to give yourself the chance and the opportunity to perform optimally.
That's awesome, because even just the word mental used to be a problem.
Mm-hmm. It did.
You didn't put nothing else mental. If you say something mental, people will be like, "Oh my God, what's wrong with you?"
Mm-hmm. What's wrong with you, right?
Yeah, it's an everyday thing. You mentally think about everything. So
right. And two more things I just want to say real quick. So we might think about our language, right? Because the NBA has a league in Africa, the Basketball Africa League, and talking about mental health internationally is also very different. Right. So we may talk about mental fitness or mental resilience or mental conditioning, which speaks to the same kind of thing. Again, if we're talking about illness is illness. And so we need to talk about treating symptoms. But if we're thinking about what are we doing to promote well-being? What are we doing to promote mental health? We may think of it in terms of mental conditioning, right? And the same way that we think about what are you doing to develop your physical strength, endurance, flexibility? Well, what are you doing to develop your mental strength, endurance, flexibility, right? We think about it in terms of fitness and conditioning, and we speak about it in that way because that makes it more digestible. Right. And that can help us get around some of the stigma. But I recognize for certain cultural groups, for certain racial and ethnic groups, for men, like they're socialized not to be vulnerable or weak or not to talk about emotions. But the fact of the matter is emotions is a human experience. It's a human thing. And the last thing I was going to say was in these last 7 years, I think COVID And the experience of us all navigating COVID served as two things. It was a great accelerator and it was an equalizer. What I mean by that is COVID hit and everybody was trying to figure out, what is this? What are we doing? What is this? And how long is it gonna last? And it was an accelerator because it forced us to think about, well, how do we take care of ourselves? How do we take care of our mental health? How do we protect ourselves physically? Like, it accelerated the conversation around mental health, I think, a great deal. And I say it was an equalizer because it didn't matter where you were in the world, you were impacted. Right now, don't get me wrong, health disparities are real. So there were some communities that were impacted more than others. Absolutely. That is a fact. Yet we were all impacted. And so I think just recognizing that mental health is a universal experience. Mental illness is not. That becomes a very big distinguishing factor.
That's awesome. I always said one of the most important shows was The Sopranos because the mob boss was getting mental health. Because
Tony Soprano was sitting in therapy. Yeah, he was.
He was big part of the show.
Therapy.
It was a big part of the show. First, let me say thank you. Kensa, thank you so much for doing this. I want to end it with this.
Sure.
And you have touched many people, athletes, teams, communities. What are you most proud of the work that you've done? What is the biggest thing that you can say? If it's not one thing, as most people, what are you most proud of?
That's a big question. Wow. So when people ask me about the Mind Health program and kind of like, what do you think the biggest accomplishment is there? I think what often comes to mind first as it relates to the Mind Health program is the network and the fact that we have a tremendous network of professionals across our NBA, WNBA, and G League teams that are available to try to provide service. And I think the fact that we can say all of our teams have a designated person, that feels like a tremendous accomplishment, that there is somebody available to all teams. If you ask me kind of personally, that would probably require more thought. And I still don't even know if I'd be able to come up with anything really, because it's just hard. It's hard to turn the mirror on oneself and be like, well, what are you proud of? But what does come to mind, I think, is I guess I'm grateful for, but I also recognize the power of the fact that I'm a Black woman, psychologist in a sport space, which often can be thought of as a male-dominated space, representing a field, mental health, that includes a lot of taboos. So I think the fact that I'm in spaces and I'm trying to help demystify what mental health help and mental health care, what that can look like. And that I'm also trying to, being who I am and coming in the package and living in the skin that I'm in, I'm also serving as a representative that the doctor can also be a diverse person. The doctor can be a Black woman. The doctor doesn't always have to be a man or something else. Like, it doesn't. I think I serve as a representative for, there is room for you in this field. There's room for you in this space. We can do this work and we can do it effectively. And so I think that's one of the things that I've come to be really proud of, is what it means to be a Black woman, psychologist, doctor in this space, doing this work and being received positively in the work that I'm doing and trying to have an impact. And I know it will sound cliche, but trying to leave the world a little bit better than I found it, and trying to get people to think about mental health in a more expansive way than what we have historically thought about or the way we've talked about it.
Well, I will say, because I say it for you. When we look back at this moment, when we're creating a complete athlete now, and you're having a big part of that, because of course we always thought about who can run the 40, who can lift the most weights, who can tackle a lot, who can catch touchdowns. But now we're getting them to that next season of athletes. And I think we're going to be better because of the time we are in now And I think you would be one of the big pioneers that we can all thank for going forward. So
Well,
tell
I thank
people,
you, and I received that. Thank you so much, truly.
tell people where they can find you at. If you got any websites you want to promote, anything you want to do, just some social media or some mind health social media. Where can they find you at and get these things and look more into it?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, just first, last name, and I'm usually the only one that pops up with that first and last name combo. So you can definitely find me there. That's probably the biggest place you can find me. I also have a website though, and so you can find me at drkensa.com. That's drkensa.com. I have a website. There's information there. I've also participated I've written some articles. I participated in some other presentations and talks, some of which you might be able to find on YouTube. And so if you type my name in there, I think some stuff will come up. But those are really the places where you can find me in the land of social media.
It is. How Mom doing?
Mom is good. She says hello. She says hello. Yes.
Thank you. Hey man, that's our show, and we hope that you got something. I've been blessed to be able to meet some great people, and Dr. Kensa is one of those that. Let me ask you a fun question. Do you ever get athletes that be like, I didn't know I needed all that? Like,
those are my favorite. Yes.
What are you talking about?
Literally. I love it. So, the ones that this is going to sound so strange probably, but like I love the opportunity to dispel whatever notion somebody has about what therapy is, what a psychologist is. Like, I love being able to say, oh no, like we're real people too. It's a funny thing, I know, and I do have a couch in my office. So if you want to sit on it, you absolutely can. But like, I'm a person, and that's what therapy is. Therapy is usually, if it's one-on-ones, two people having a conversation where our goal in that moment is to try to understand life from your perspective so we can help you think through, process, develop skills that allow you to move differently in your life so that you can move in the way that you want to, right? Like an analogy that I use is like, I don't come into anybody's house unless I'm invited. But if you invite me into your house now, we might do some rearranging of the furniture in order to make this space feel more comfortable and more livable for you. So I love when somebody finally decides to come talk to me and they realize, oh, you're not that bad. This is not that bad. Yes. I like that. I survived. I also want to say to you before we wrap, just thank you, because I know we've done a couple of interviews. And so I just appreciate your openness and willingness to have this platform, to certainly bring conversations of mental health to the platform. You have always been immensely supportive of me. And thank you even for asking about my mom, right? Like, y'all met at a game and now y'all are fast friends, right? But that just speaks to who you are. So I thank you for being you, and thank you for creating the spaces that you create as well. It is a gift to all of us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And moms just, she's moms, man. She do what she do. She do what you do. But yeah, that's our show. It's and for me, I will tell everybody, I'm a big proponent of mental health. It's helped me through my life. If you need help, go get it. Don't worry about nobody else. It's your conversation. It's your health. It's not nobody else's health. It's your health. So if you are waiting for somebody to give you approval to take care of your mental health, it won't happen. So take care of your mental health.
It might, but go anyway.
Dr. Gunter, I'm EGlaze. This is the EGlaze Chronicles. I'm sorry, this is Clear Vizion with EGlaze. Thank you and have a great day, everybody.